Ella caught on the penalty area, right-footed cross, Williams! 2-0 to Manchester United. They've beaten Chelsea and they are into an FA Cup final.
In a moment where we can produce performances like that, then you can go to Wembley.
Flicks it on, Thomas with the header, and she's done it! Martha Thomas has surely sent Tottenham to Wembley.
We haven't won anything yet, so we need to also get back to the training ground and make sure we develop and try to go for a trophy.
I'm off to the Women's FA Cup final this afternoon, which is between Man United and Spurs, when history will be made with a new name on the trophy. And we've got now Jacqui Oatley, well-known broadcaster, who will be presenting the warm-up show live at noon on talkSPORT 2 from Box Park. Warming up literally and metaphorically, is it, Jacqui?
Hi, Shaun. Yeah, absolutely. My goodness, I'm glad I put the SPF 30 on this morning when I came out, which is only about the second time I've used it in this country this year, but it's absolutely scorching. And I'm on the balcony at Box Park overlooking what we call Wembley Way, but we know it's really called Olympic Way. And it's just a beautiful day for an FA Cup final, and nobody really has any idea who's actually going to win this thing.
Jacqui, I went last year, actually, and it was a boiling hot day last year as well, Chelsea against Man United, and I felt, actually, like any players would, male or female, everybody was wilting a bit in the heat by the end, so it can be tough out there. Chelsea won it. But interestingly, this year, we've not got the traditional big three involved, Chelsea, Spurs or Manchester City. It's been a strange season.
Yeah, it's the first time since 2012 when Birmingham City beat Chelsea at Ashton Gate, Bristol City's ground, that we've not had either Arsenal, Manchester City or Chelsea win the trophy. And frankly, as a complete neutral, I think it's a brilliant thing that A, there's going to be a new name on the trophy, and B, it doesn't feel like a foregone conclusion. OK, last year Chelsea were in it with Manchester United, who were there for the first time. And it wasn't really a great game, was it? I was watching in bed in Florida at the time. I was over there commentating, and it was a bit stodgy, wasn't it? But I think today there's so much intrigue, and whoever does win it, it will make for a great story. Both of these sides were promoted together to the WSL in 2019. It's the first time that Spurs have reached this far at all in a major tournament, and I think they're probably going to feel a little bit less pressure than Manchester United, who really the expectation is there for them to win something.
Sorry, I made a mistake earlier on saying it's Chelsea, Arsenal and Man City, of course, who are the traditional big three and usually fighting it out for the title. And for Spurs to win silverware, that would be quite something, would it not? Because we get very used to calling the men's team for not being able to get over the line. For the women's team to do it would be a real feather in their caps.
Yeah, it really would. And it's a very different route to this stage that Manchester United have had. United were elected into the Championship, which they won at the first attempt in 2019, whereas Tottenham came up with them that year. But they come right from the very bottom, from grassroots. They were called Broxbourne Ladies initially, and they were playing in the Greater London League when I was playing in it way back in the day, when I went to my first Women's FA Cup final at Selhurst Park in 2001, and I was on my crutches having dislocated my kneecap playing for that team in that league. And Spurs, who took on the name later on, but really didn't have anything to do with the men's club officially until 2019 when they came into the WSL. So a very, very different history to the men's side, a very organic growth, and they've made their way up through the divisions and they've worked their way up to this stage. And they had a relegation battle last year under Rianne Skinner, and they made a change of manager and they brought in the Swedish coach Robert Wilhelm, who is from the Swedish league. He left BK Häcken at the top of the league there. He's lost a couple of cup finals himself, but really changed the culture. And they're such a positive side, really progressive now. And I just feel that the pressure's not on their shoulders, but with players such as Beth England, a fabulous England striker that she is, and a lot of experience, Martha Thomas as well, who came from Manchester United, who came on as a sub for United in last year's FA Cup final, but didn't get the minutes that she wanted. You feel that perhaps they might be feeling less pressure and maybe feeling pretty quietly confident. But then United have so much firepower, they really do. Really exciting forwards, big name players. Ella Toone, for goodness sake, is used to winning Euros at Wembley, Mary Earps and the like, and the Golden Boot winner at the last World Cup for Japan as well. So it really is an intriguing final. I honestly can't wait for it.
Jacqui, Wembley is sold out. Do you think we're on a journey to, I know we're seeing it with sort of Arsenal women playing at the Emirates, but do you think at some point in the next few years that all WSL games, I know this is a cup final, it's special, it's unique, will be played at their home stadiums, at the men's stadium, and it will effectively become a shared stadium between the men's and the women?
Yeah, they've started referring to what we used to call the men's stadium as the main stadium now, in a way to try and make that transition. So, for example, you look at Arsenal women, who are now playing so many more games at what we used to call the men's stadium, now they call the main stadium, as opposed to Boreham Wood. And they are making that transition. I'd say pretty much all the WSL clubs, apart from West Ham United, who their women are not allowed to play in the main stadium. That's a source of frustration for the players themselves. I know that. They just don't get that opportunity. Even on Women's Football Weekend, when all the main stadia were being utilised, West Ham were not. It's a different ownership model, but for whatever reason, the money's not being paid for them to actually play those games there. But in answer to your question, I can see it heading that way. There is a school of thought that means you want to grow the fan base first in the smaller, lower league stadia. Spurs, for example, play at Brisbane Road, which is a really good stadium. Everton, though, play in front of a few hundred people at Stanley Park. Question marks there about how they've been supported over the years in terms of the stadia. They've always been attached to a club that's always had Premier League money, even though they've been on rocky times in recent times. So I think they are heading that way. But Chelsea have recently started playing more often at Stamford Bridge, and they managed to sell that out recently for that incredible Champions League semi-final against Barcelona, and they're really putting all the resources behind it, belatedly compared to Arsenal, because I know Emma Hayes really wanted to be playing their games more at Kingsmeadow due to that home advantage factor. But I do think it's heading that way, yes.
You can see why the clubs will want to do it, because they can see the level of interest there. But will there be some resistance from the managers, head coaches of the men's team, because they are quite protective of their pitches, even though the majority of them are Deso and can actually withstand that extra use?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I commentated on the NWSL, the Women's Top League, in Houston last weekend. It was the most fabulous pitch, and the men had played on it the night before, and we had a 4-hour, 13-minute half-time break. 4-hour, 13 minutes because of thunderstorms and lightning. The players came back on, played the second half, and the pitch was in absolute tip-top condition. So I think modern pitches mean that that's not a problem anymore.
Jacqui, I know people say the women's game should stand alone on its own. It's nothing to do with the men's game, and the men's game has its ways. But what do you think about the fact Tottenham play Man United in the Women's Cup final at half-2, then Man United have a home game to follow that in the league, and it means if you're a Manchester United fan, you cannot go to both?
Oh, Shaun, this is one of the biggest issues in the women's game. It really is fixtures. You ask anybody who works in scheduling or who tries to market tickets, etc., scheduling of women's football matches is such a problem. It always has been. The reason being that men got there first, around 100 years before. Women were banned effectively from playing football for 50 years until the early 70s. And so we've been trying to reverse park into men's football. And you know, I commentated for Sky in the first couple of years of the WSL coverage, and trying to get the right time of day and the right TV slot to be able to get the crowds and to be able to, you know, put the games on is just really difficult. So I think it takes communication, it takes collaboration. I think that's the only way forward, is communicating right at base, right at source, when the fixtures are first put down, a couple of years in advance even, and then thinking, OK, potentially this could happen. How can we collaborate to make sure that fans can get to both? I mean, that semi-final of the Champions League I talked about, the Women's Champions League, yes, it was a full house in the end, but, you know, the men were playing away at Aston Villa, and they would have... Those 4,000 travelling Chelsea supporters no doubt would have loved to have gone there with their mates, with their families. So it is definitely an issue.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.